Hello soulmates, welcome to the Honest Fashion Academy. In this video, we want to learn how to make a basic skirt, a straight skirt, and then alter it to a pencil skirt. So I'm beginning with the drafting of the basic skirt before altering to a pencil skirt. Now the measurements we need, in case you don't know how to take the measurements, we're going to watch the video on how to take a skirt measurement. Now the measurements we need is our waist circumference, hip circumference, waist to hip, and waist to knee. Okay, we equally need our knee circumference. Right, you need a knee circumference, and then I will show you other ways you can go about the knee circumference if you're not able to get the knee circumference. But it's very important if you're going for a pencil or peg skirt. So without wasting time, let's proceed. To get the size of the paper we need for our hip, okay, we're drafting a pattern after which you can then transfer it to your fabric. Our hip circumference, this is a small paper, the small measurement, we're using 18. So whatever you learn here, you replicate it to your own measurement. Our hip circumference here is 18, our waist is 13, and our waist to hip we're using 5, and our waist to knee we're using 10. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now, to get the size of the paper or a hip circumference to work on the paper, we're going to divide our hip into two because we're working on front and back at the same time. We're dividing our hip into two instead of into four. 18 divided by 2, we're going to have 9, right? We're not adding any other measurements, any other allowance to it. It's just going to remain 9. So from here, this is just the borderline. You can create 1 inch from the top down, 1 inch by the side down. You rule across 1 inch, 1 inch, just to create a borderline. So our measurement begins from the borderline. So from here, assuming you've created just one part, this place you can just stay on its own until you get the measurement that you want. So from here we're measuring 9 inches. That is how we got from here to here, and we ruled a straight line. Now to get the center line, we divided from here to here into 2, and that gives us 4.5. That is 9 divided by 4. We have a straight line here. I hope that is clear. So let's proceed to the front um, measurement. So in this case, here we have our CB. This will represent our back, and here becomes our CF, which is the front part. Okay, so let's proceed. We're beginning from the front part first. Now, what we're going to do before then is to get the length of our hip. We're measuring from the waistline to our hip, that is waist to hip, and we said we are using 5. So we're going to mark this 5 across and rule a straight line. So here we have our hip line. You can write it down, hip line. So working on the front part, the first thing we're going to do is to get our waist circumference for the front part. Okay, now instead of working with waist 13, use your own measurement. We're dividing 13 into 4, and that will give us 3.25. 3.25. This is without that. If you're working without the dart in the front, just take your normal measurement and everything will be fine. I know some persons will say you have to mark your dart, then eliminate it. Whichever way, it's going to be fine. But if you're going to insert the dart in the front part, you're adding your dart allowance at the same time. Understand the marking. Then divide the paper, the size into two, and mark where your dart will be. Okay. The length of the front dart is usually 4 inches for the front dart. Then the back are going to measure 6 inches. I hope that is clear. So in this case, we're not using any dart for the front. We're going to use 3.25 like that. So when we get this 3.25, we're going to connect to our hip point. You can use a straight line if the person you're working or the measurement, the figure you're working with is a straight person, use a straight line. If it's a curvy person, use a curve, but don't make it so much curve. I hope this is making sense to someone. Now there's something we call pouch. At the CF, the center front, you're going to bring this line down to eliminate possible fold in the front. Okay, eliminate possible fold in the front. So if you are using your normal measurement, you can come down by half inch, 1 inch, 1.5, 2 inches at most if the person has a very big stomach. Okay, if the person is so flat, you can take half inch. But here we're going to use half inch. This is very necessary so that you don't accumulate so much fold in front. You can use a slight fold, you can use a straight line. So this is what it's going to look like. So when you're cutting from this line down and no longer the straight line. Okay, so for the front, a basic straight skirt, we are done. We're moving over to the back um, parts. So for the back, what we're going to do is to divide our waist into four the same way we did for the front. But the difference we're going to put at the back now is that at this CB line, we are going to go in by half inch, sometimes 3/4 of an inch, sometimes 1 inch, depending on how deep and how pronounced. You can see how I stress the word pronounced the back side is. Alright, this will help to eliminate any possible fold at the zip part and help it to relax properly. We're going in here by half inch. If you've not been doing this, I urge you to try it and see how it's going to come out beautifully well. So from this line, I said for an adult, you can take half inch, you can take 3/4, you can take 1 inch, depending on how pronounced the person is. So let your um, your creativity, your intuition, your imagination, whatever what you see to guide you on this part. So from that line, we're going to mark our waist measurement. At the back, it's very necessary that we have a dart, at least two, for the sake of the thing at the back. The back is not so straight, so we can have a dart at the back. And the dart here, we're going to add half inch for the dart. So we divide it 0.25, 0.25 on both sides of the dart line. If you're using a normal measurement, you can add 1 inch so that you take half inch on both sides. Now, in some persons too, just like I said before, depending on how pronounced the back is, you can take 3/4 of an inch on both sides because the size of the dart depends on the size of the person you're working with, as in how pronounced the hip area, the bust area, whatever area you're directing the dart to. The size determines the size of the dart. So in this case, we're taking half inch, and our half inch stops here. Okay, now in some cases, if peradventure after taking this measurement, you find out that it is crossing over to the front part, there is no problem. What you have to do is to transfer it from wherever it is, even if it's overlapping, you transfer it separately to another paper before cutting on your main fabric. So this is where our measurement stops. So wherever it stops, divide it into two to get our dark line. We're dividing it into two from here. Yeah, from here, right, to this place, we're dividing into two, and whatever it gives us, that is where our dart will be. All right. I hope you following. So this is where our measurement is. Waist divide by 4 plus the size of our dart. This is where we mark it, and then we divide it into 2 and have our dart line. So on this dart line, remember we added half inch. So we're dividing half inch into 2 and we have 0.25, 0.25. If you added 1 inch, you're marking half inch to make up the one that you added. I hope you're following. Okay, so this part we're going to connect it to the hip line. You can use a straight line, and you can use um I hope you saw what I was doing. Yeah, you can use a straight line, you can use a very slight curve depending on the shape of the person. Okay, so this is where we connected from to here, and then this part too, we're connecting from here to our hip line. I said before, you can use a straight line and you can use a slight curved line. So we're making progress. We are making progress. Where is okay? So for the length of our dart, for the front, I said you can use half inch for the length of the dart if you're adding that in the front. For the back, we're going to use 6 inches on a normal body. Okay, this is a mini me, a small measurement, miniature. So we're going to measure 3 inches, that is half of the normal human size. Or on your pattern, you can just go up by 2 inches and mark the length of your dart. Okay, so let's take it 3 inches. The 3 inches is just the same with 2 inches above the hip line. I hope you can hear me properly. So we're connecting this to this and this to this, and this is our dart. So on this note, we have a straight skirt, a basic pattern, call it anything basic. This is how it is. So by the time you hold the dart here, you're going to have a very nice shape. Okay, so altering this into a pet skirt, a pencil skirt, or whatever, we're going to do the following. Okay, like I said before, there are so many ways to get our knee circumference. You can measure your knee circumference. Let's assume your hip is 40 and you measured your knee circumference and you have 34. So what you're going to do is to minus 34 from 40 and you'll be having 6 inches. Now the 6 inches, because this is unfold into 2, you're going to divide the 6 into 2 and you have 3. Okay, so the 3 now, what you're going to do is to share the 3 between here, here, and here. Okay, so from here, this line you're measuring 1 inch, from this line you're measuring 1 inch, and from this line you're measuring 1 inch. Okay, now that is if you took your step guide or your knee measurement. On another hand, you can just on your own decide to minus 1 inch from your hip circumference. So here now I measured the hip. Whatever you have here, you're minusing, reducing it by 1 inch, and that is what you're going to use on this part. So let's say here we have 4.5. minus 1 inch, it's going to give us 3.5. So at this point, I'm measuring 3.5. Now, for the first measurement you took, you might decide not to share it equally. You can divide the 3 into 2 and you have 1.5. So at the front, you can have 1.5, then divide the 1.5 that is remaining into this part and this part. I hope that is making sense. We've talked about two ways, and then the third way, you can just minus 6 inches from your hip circumference. So, like I said before, if you have 40, you can just decide to minus 6 inches from 40 and you have 34. Your knee circumference will not always give you the same answer with minusing 6 inches from your hip measurement. So you can just minus one figure 6 inches if it's not a stretchy fabric. If it is a stretchy fabric, you can minus up to 8 inches and it will be fine. So in this case, what we're doing is to minus 1 inch from our hip measurement and we are left with 3.5. So we're minusing 1 inch from this part again and we're minusing 1 inch from this part. If we are minusing 1 inch from our hip measurement, like this is 4.5 and we minus 1, it will remain 3.5. Okay, so here we're marking 3.5. Now on this part, if you minus 1 inch, you're going to have 3.5. In that case, you're marking half inch here and half inch on this part. Okay, that is if you're just minusing 1 inch from the hip circumference, which you have already divided into two. But if you want this place to be more pronounced, you can still add something else to it. You can still add extra inch to it. Because this is the back side, you want it to be well pronounced. Okay, you can take your step guide and share everything equally so that this part will not be too small than other parts. I hope you're following. I hope you're following. So let's just assume that we minus 6 inches from our hip measurement. We'll share it equally. One, two, three. When you open it up, it is 6 inches. So that is what I want to do. I want to share it equally. One here and one here. Or you can even reduce it and take half inch this part and increase this part and this part. So however you want to share it, it's acceptable so long as it's going to give you fitting around the knee part and then around this part. Here is very important more than this other side, except you just want the back to be so straight. So okay, let's just share it. We've taken 1 inch here and we're taking half inch on this part and half inch on this part. So we're connecting here to the hip, right? We're connecting this part to the hip and we're connecting this part to the hip also. So this is how it's going to be. Like I said before, you can decide to share it equally. Assuming you calculated the amount that you want to take out from the hip area to get your knee, instead of taking the whole of 1 inch from here, you can decide to share everything equal. So to measure, you start to measuring from here to where this part stops, then shift it to this area to make sure that your knee circumference is just what it is. So this is for a pencil skirt, and whenever you notice that you have sharp edges, especially at the hip area, try to blend it properly. I hope this helps someone. If you've gotten any value, subscribe to our channel, give a thumbs up, make a comment, like, and share. So this is our pencil sketch. See you in the next class for more alterations on our basic